I've told you time and time again that when we voted to leave the EU, there, the result in the context of what I'm saying is irrelevant. Really, it's the conduct of the politicians around the whole debate that is relevant, particularly those that at the time said it would be a once in a lifetime opportunity, would never come again, there would never be another vote, we weren't going to have one, and all the rest of it. The same old baloney. And one of the people that was most prevalent in what they said was Keir Starmer. I've got so many bits of recording that I've been sent to me over the years where he's quite openly turned around and said, the vote must be respected. It will never come again, and all the rest of it. And he's not alone. Yvette Cooper's another one as well. And somehow they all get a seat. They all get the positions they've got, and the merry-go-round continues. Well, we get regularly kicked in the bollocks every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year with this clown show. And, constitutionally, giving our power away to a foreign agency or foreign state, which is what is going on here, is treasonous. And whoever signed all the paperwork in the early 1970s should be in prison. It's that simple. Now, a shining example of what's going on this week is the Munich Security Conference. And we got the tweet here. Now, I find it very funny because I have production people that send me the source material for everything I record. And this geezer they sent me has actually blocked me. I've never had any interaction with him in my life, so I don't know what that's about, but there you go. Anyway, so Keir Starmer on the left, we're not the Britain of the Brexit years anymore. And then Ursula von der Leyen, Europe in particular, the UK, should come closer. Anyone else fancy joining the EU or rejoining the EU? If you ask me, and I've had this conversation before, I do not believe for 1 second that we actually ever really left. I think the whole thing's been a bloody big pantomime from beginning to end. I don't know what you lot think, but have a listen to this.
Now, we are not the Britain of the Brexit years anymore, because we know
Europe, and in particular the UK, should come closer on security, on economy, on defending our democracies. 10 years from Brexit, our futures are as bound as ever, dear Keir. So it is in our common interest to be ambitious about our partnership, because the UK and the European Union, in fact, all of Europe, we are in this together, and we will always stick together. This is the common promise.
Now, we are not the Britain of the Brexit years anymore.
See, you've just heard that yet again. We're not the Britain of the Brexit years anymore. It's, that is a shining example there that he's just announced of the ultimate betrayal. One of the things that he's announced as well in conjunction with, this Munich Security Conference is the fact that they're going to be deploying what he calls a carrier strike group to the Atlantic to do with combating Russia. This is what this is all about. They want their bloody war. That's what's going on here. It's absolutely incredible. And looking at the comments, it's a load of tripe. It really is a load of tripe on that entire video. And, you look at our military, for example, our army, our navy, our air force, our intelligence assets, hell, even our basic self-defense, it's all EU bound. It's all decided by them. So effectively, you've signed away authority over our own strategic assets to somebody else. Again, completely and utterly treasonous. It is awful. So he has just announced, in terms of them, we ain't the Brexit Britain anymore. That shouldn't have happened. That's basically what he's implying. Now, another thing I want to look at is this. Now, this is the live feed of the whole thing, and it gives you some other updates of what's going on. And we've got, here you go, UK deployment, a powerful show of commitment to Euro-Atlantic security. As we've just reported, Starmer has announced a new UK deployment in collaboration with NATO allies. He says, I can announce today that the UK will deploy our carrier strike group to the North Atlantic and High North. He notes that this operation will be run alongside the US, Canada, and other NATO allies. Starmer describes this as a powerful show of the UK's commitment to the Euro-Atlantic security. Starmer has now concluded his speech and is taking questions. Stay with us for more. Now, they're talking about tackling Russian aggression, but there's one thing you have to be sure of, and I'm going to say this, is remember all the stuff that was happening with Greenland and, you know, all the talk about that. And if you really drill down into the nuts and bolts of what's really going on, this is all connected to that still. This isn't, you know, this isn't about Russia entirely. This is about something else, and they are fooling you. UK will deploy a carrier strike group to the North Atlantic and the High North next year. At the end of the day, what carrier strike group? Our military has been completely and utterly decimated by years of neglect and budget cuts. We don't have it. Europe is a sleeping giant when it comes to defence, Starmer says. The NATO alliance is a phenomenon in human history, he says, hailing the alliance, but notes that we need to create a more European version. Europe is a sleeping giant, Starmer says, highlight how their economies dwarf Russia's more than 10 times over. But he notes those who have huge defence capabilities also suffer from fragmentation and duplication, which has made them wildly inefficient, harming their collective security. The US security umbrella has allowed us to develop these bad habits, he says, but we must break them. At the end of the day, America has been shelling out millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year for this, and they've had just about enough of it. Europe knows it, the British know it, and they're shitting themselves. Again, that's what this is all about, ultimately. It really is. NATO, I think, is no longer fit for purpose. I think it's a busted flush. I think it's nothing more than a glorified warmongering machine now, personally. And if you look at some of the early treaties, some of the early promises, some of the early guarantees that they wouldn't move so far in one direction, and they're basically welching on all of that. Come on. You know, what do you think we are? Do you think we believe all of this? Starmer says that Europe must rise to this moment and spend more and deliver more and coordinate more. Crucially, we must do this with the US, he says. He says the US remains an indispensable ally and its contribution to European security is unparalleled. Starmer says he recognises that things are changing and the new normal is Europe taking responsibility for its own defence. Well, it should do. Or rather, the countries that make up Europe should. He agrees that the world has changed fundamentally and we must find new ways to uphold our values and law. Europe must stand on its own 2 feet. At the end of the day, there is a big difference between Europe and a European Union. A European Union, again, is a communist-type construct where they're trying to centralise the power. And at the end of the day, none of these bastards are elected by anybody. So it's even more so. It's all centrist. And it ain't a bit of me. And it shouldn't be a bit of you either. Europe must stand on its own 2 feet. Oh, you know, we're getting to some juicy stuff here. We must be ready to fight if necessary, Starmer says. Europe does not seek conflict. That's a load of bollocks. And its objective is lasting peace. But the road ahead must be built on hard power because it's the currency of the age. And we must be ready to fight if necessary. And here's one more. This time must be different, Starmer says, on defence to support Ukraine. He says, for most people in the UK, the idea of war has been a remote one. It's something that concerns us deeply, but happens far away. But today, the PM notes, we can feel the very ground that we stand on softening under our feet. Russia, he points out, has proved its appetite for aggression with the ongoing war in Ukraine. time and time again, leaders have looked the other way, only rearming when disaster is upon them. He says this time it must be different. Now, to end, I'm going to tell you something, right? As a near 50-year-old man, I've lived all of my life in England, and I've watched the telly. I've fallen for the BBC bullshit, the same as everybody else. And for a long time, I believed what I was told by my country, my government, my media, because I was brought up to believe they told me the truth. And since I've started doing this, I started this 6 years ago, more or less. The amount of messages I've been sent in the background, the amount of things that I've learned, the amount of things that I've read, and the amount of things that I now know that I didn't know 6 years ago, and the contacts that I've made in the background, who again tell me things I didn't know 6 years ago. The world is certainly a very, very different place to what you believe to be going on. And it's certainly a very, very different feel once you get a handle of what goes on under the bonnet. It's like you see the bodywork of the car, but you don't really know what's going on underneath the bonnet. That's exactly the way the world works. Really quite frightening. Don't take anything at face value. Always look into it and then decide. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share my stuff, and I'll talk to you soon. Toodaloo.